This is the Jujutsu Kaisen Iceberg. It consists of 7 parts and is full of interesting theories and fun facts about the show. The first stage of the iceberg contains mostly well-known popular theories you probably heard of before, but as we go deeper down the iceberg, the theories are slowly going to get more and more bizarre, until they completely blow your mind. And let's start with a really simple one, the moon theory. Same as most other animes, Jujutsu Kaisen has a lot of symbolism in it, specifically linked to Buddhism. One symbol commonly seen in the anime is a full moon, and every time we see it, there's a significant event that takes place. In Buddhism, a full moon represents birth, and the first time we see a full moon is when Yuji eats the first finger, symbolizing Sukuna's birth. In Season 2, we see the full moon again on the day Riko and Tenke were supposed to merge. The concept of merging here is also considered a rebirth, confirming the moon theory. The legend of Rsumikuna. Although you most likely first heard the name Rsumikuna in Jujutsu Kaisen's anime, you may be surprised to find out that he was actually a real person who existed in Japan's history and was later made out to be a myth. According to the legend, Sukuna, the two-faced spirit, is a strange being possessing 4 arms and 2 faces. He was described as quick, witty, and possessing superhuman strength. He was considered by most people to be truly heroic, having a kind heart and saving villagers from harm. However, in some places, he's known to be cruel and evil, always torturing people and taking pride in killing them. Considering this and the fact that he has 2 faces, it's most likely that Sukuna has 2 personalities within him, one good and one evil. Next up, we have a mystery entry on the iceberg, and it's the one I'm sure most of you guys will love, 𝐿. Okay, this is definitely not a Jujutsu theory, but if you're an anime fan, let me tell you why this game is a must-play. 𝐿 is a space fantasy RPG that's made by the creators of Genshin Impact, which is already a good enough reason to download it. But if that didn't convince you, the game had over 80 million downloads within the first 6 months, which is honestly a lot of downloads. With their newest update, there are 2 new limited 5-star characters you can collect, 𝐿𝐻𝐻 and 𝐼rgenT. 𝐼rgenT is this knight-looking dude with exceptional AoE attacks, but the one I'm really excited for, that will be coming out soon, is 𝐻𝐻𝐻. She's this overpowered support type character who can restore teammates' health and give them cool buffs. Man, I really hope I get her soon. She would definitely help with my losing streak. This is the best time to start playing 𝐿𝐻𝐻 as the big 1.5 update is out now. You can complete new ghost-busting missions, explore a brand new map, and even get 10 free special passes if you log in for 7 days. Click my link in the description to download 𝐿𝐻𝐻 for free, and you can even use my special promo code to get 50 stellar jades. 𝐥𝐤 hates Gojo. During a popularity poll, 𝐥𝐤 specifically mentioned that he doesn't like Gojo as a character. Apparently it's because he made Gojo way too powerful and now is struggling to come up with situations and villains that are actually threatening to the strongest sorcerer. I mean, I guess he eventually found a way to make it work. The Cursed Energy. Cursed Energy is the main power system in the JJK, but have you ever noticed that it's quite similar to the power system of another popular shonen anime? I'm talking about Hunter x Hunter. In the world of this anime, there's a technique called Nen, which pretty much allows people to harness their life energy. It's a defining feature of Yoshiro Togashi's manga and plays a crucial role in its narrative. Interestingly, there's a fascinating connection between Nen and the Cursed Energy from Jujutsu Kaisen. Here are some of them. Both require rigorous training in order to use, both are inaccessible to the average person, and they share striking visual similarities. Nanami original role. Currently, Kento Nanami is one of the good guys, but it wasn't always supposed to be like that. Apparently, 𝐥𝐤 had originally planned to make Nanami a villain, but scrapped the idea at some point. I'm glad this guy is now on the good side. Just imagine how terrifying he would be as a villain. Okay, most of these theories and facts so far are pretty simple and well known, but we now enter the second stage, and here's where things start to get interesting. Gojo's words to Geto. In the Jujutsu Kaisen movie, Suguru Geto gets badly beaten by Yuta and is near death when Gojo finds him. At that time, Gojo sits down and says something to him that we don't get to hear, but we know that Geto replies with, "You should at least curse me in the end," implying that Gojo said something nice to him. Anyway, there's been many theories about what he might have said, but the most promising one is that he said, "We'll meet again." But what proof do I have of this? Well, the first arc of the second season is all about Gojo's and Geto's past as the students at Jujutsu High. The opening for that arc is called Ao no Sumika, and the lyrics are written from Gojo's point of view. The reason I'm mentioning this is because there are a few lines in this song that hint Gojo's last words to Geto. "The words to curse you have been stuck in the back of my throat. We'll meet again, right? A voice that can't be heard." This perfectly ties in with Geto's response and everything that happened in that scene. Yorozu gift. One of the 𝐂𝐮𝐼 game players, 𝐿 is a powerful Jujutsu sorcerer from the Heian era who was incarnated into the body of Megumi's sister. Back in her first life, she had a very unhealthy obsession with Sukuna, and near her death, she gave him a mysterious final gift. Although we have no idea what she gave him, there is a great theory about it. A lot of fans believe she probably created one of his weapons from the Heian era, more specifically the spear that he holds every time his original form is mentioned. This would make sense considering 𝐿 curse technique is called construction and allows her to make pretty much anything she wants. If this is the case, we should be seeing Sukuna's original weapon pretty soon, as his battle against sorcerers is heating up. Kenjaku's manipulation. Immediately after Kenjaku managed to seal Gojo using the prison realm, the box fell to the ground with great force and couldn't be moved. At that point in time, there was nothing unusual with this, and Kenjaku explained it by saying that the prison realm just needed some time to process Gojo's incredible strength. But what if this was a lie? A lot of fans speculate that Kenjaku used his gravity manipulation power to do this on purpose and make it seem like the prison realm can't be moved. But why would he do this? Well, at that point, Kenjaku didn't need the special grade curses anymore since Gojo was already sealed, so it's possible that he just needed a reason to stay behind while all the other curses would go and fight sorcerers. He probably just wanted to exhaust the curses as much as possible so he could easily absorb them later, which is exactly what he did with Mahito after the latter was defeated by Yuji and Todo. Gojo's design. You probably noticed how Gojo's design looks a bit different in the movie Zero compared to the rest of the Jujutsu Kaisen. Although the movie came out between the first and second seasons of the show, the source material for the movie was actually created way before the first chapter of the manga. This is why Gojo looks a bit different, as it was the first time the creator tried to draw him. He later realized that drawing bandages over Gojo's eyes is pretty time consuming and decided to change it to a regular blindfold later on. Mantis Shrimp Black Flash. Black Flash is a phenomenon in the Jujutsu Kaisen world that gives a major boost to physical attacks when the conditions are met. When the user applies cursed energy exactly 1/1,000,000th of a second after the physical hit, it distorts the space, causing the cursed energy to increase the power of the attack by 2 to 3 times. Okay, you all knew that, but did you know that this ridiculously overpowered technique is based on real-life occurrences? Mantis shrimps are small alien-like creatures that can snap their claws together so fast they form a small vacuum bubble in the water. This causes them to produce a force so strong that they could never achieve by simply pinching the target. Using this weird technique, the shrimp can even break glass fish tanks. It's most likely that Gege Akutami, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen, was inspired by these creatures and modeled Black Flash after this technique. Hakari's domain. Hakari is a third-year student at Jujutsu High and is known to be incredibly powerful, to the point that even Gojo said that Hakari could rival his power in the future. Regarding his domain expansion, it's inspired by the Japanese slot game called Pachinko. Basically, with each jackpot Hakari hits, he gains unlimited cursed energy for a short period of time, making him literally invincible. However, many fans believe that his domain is actually rigged in his favor. This is because the pachinko game Hakari plays heavily relies on luck, and it's even stated that there's only a 1 in 239 chance of him hitting the jackpot. I know there's a bunch of stuff he uses to increase those odds, but still, Hakari just keeps hitting the jackpot over and over again, which makes it really hard to believe that it's legit. I mean, it's either somehow rigged in his favor, or the guy is the luckiest person on the planet. Tengen's gender. Master Tengen is one of the oldest Jujutsu sorcerers in the series, responsible for all the barriers surrounding Japan. Although everyone assumes Tengen is a man, it was actually revealed that their original form before they evolved was that of a woman. Tengen even corrects Yuki when they meet and tells her that she's a granny. 2 stages are now done, but there are still 5 left to go, and let's start the next stage with the theory I'm sure most of you didn't know about: Sukuna's birth. In the Jujutsu Kaisen world, twins are considered taboo. It's believed that twins limit each other's ability to thrive and that they're pretty much an incomplete version of themselves. Take Mai and Maki, for example. Mai was born with the weak curse technique, while Maki got insane strength, but without the curse technique. All in all, they were both pretty weak by themselves. However, when Mai sacrificed herself for Maki, she became incredibly powerful and was finally able to utilize her full strength. So what if this is the same thing that granted Sukuna his immense power? You see, there's a theory that Sukuna was actually going to be a twin, but ended up consuming the other twin in the womb. This is how he managed to become ridiculously powerful, and would also make sense why he has 4 arms and 2 faces. This would also explain his thirst for human flesh in the Jujutsu Kaisen series. Rika's past. You all know Rika from the Jujutsu Kaisen movie as this sweet and innocent girl, but what if that's all an act? Although the movie didn't tell us anything specific about her childhood, Gege actually shared some concerning information about Rika in her manga profile. Here it says that Rika's mom died suddenly from unknown causes when Rika was 5. Sometime after that, she and her father mysteriously got lost while mountain climbing and only Rika was found. She was later taken in by her grandmother, who strongly believes Rika killed both of her parents. Although there's no way to confirm if Rika actually killed her parents or not, this dark side of her personality could explain why she became such a powerful curse. The first 𝐂𝐮 game. The Culling Game is one of the arcs of the Jujutsu Kaisen manga, and it's basically a deadly tournament. Almost every anime has a tournament arc, but nothing quite as deadly and complicated as this one in JJK. Anyway, at the moment, Kenjaku is the one who initiated this wicked battle, but there's a really good theory that this isn't the first time the Culling Game took place. In chapter 173, we're introduced to 𝗬𝗲, a Jujutsu sorcerer from the past. He's a really old, skilled sorcerer and is referred to as the veteran in his second incarnation. This seems a bit strange, and it implies that he was incarnated once before, possibly in the first Culling Game. Another thing to note is that 𝗬𝗲 was so powerful back in his time that he single-handedly conquered Japan during the Civil War of �Wa, which happened almost 2,000 years ago, meaning that he was alive back then. It's possible that 𝗬𝗲 was incarnated 1,000 years ago during the Heian era, and that's when the first Culling Game took place. Sukuna paper cut. In chapter 216, Sukuna engulfs himself in curses in order to get full control of Megumi's body, but when he comes out, he notices something weird. There's a scratch on his finger, seemingly a paper cut. Although the cut is small, the manga panel made it seem super important. So what does it mean? Well, Sukuna is known to have one of the best regenerative capabilities in the Jujutsu Kaisen world. The guy managed to heal Yuji's blown up hands in season 1 and even managed to bring him back to life. So why was there still a scratch on him? The only fight Sukuna had in Megumi's body at that point was against Yuji and Maki, so it makes sense that one of them did some kind of irreparable damage to him. This person is most likely Yuji, and there's a great theory that explores this. If we take a look back in season 1, Gojo mentions that Yuji will be able to use Sukuna's curse techniques at some point, and it'll be engraved into him. Judging by this, it's possible that Yuji subconsciously used Cleave, one of Sukuna's techniques, to inflict damage on him. To be fair, it could also be that this cut was Megumi's way of showing resistance against the King of Curses, because at that point, Sukuna still didn't have full control of his body. I don't know about you, but I definitely like the Yuji theory more. Sukuna's curse technique. So far in the manga, Sukuna's curse technique hasn't been fully revealed, but there's some hints at what it may be. During his fight against Jogo, Sukuna chanted the word open, which granted him fire-based powers. From this, we could just assume that Sukuna's technique has something to do with fire, but that would be kinda underwhelming for the King of Curses. So let's look at some more interesting theories. First of all, if we take a look at chapter 219, we can see that the people in the Heian era worshipped Sukuna like he was some kind of deity and would also do rituals for him. Also, if you pay close attention to Sukuna's malevolent shrine, you'll notice that it's actually more of a feretory, a place where ancient artifacts are stored. When you combine these things together, it makes sense that Sukuna has somehow stolen techniques from his worshippers back in the Heian era and kept them in his shrine. So every time he chants the word open, he accesses it and chooses which curse technique he wants to use. This means that Sukuna has multiple techniques at his convenience and can use different techniques whenever he wants to. If this theory turns out to be true, it would be really cool to see Sukuna fight using a bunch of different abilities. The real Iron Mountain. Did you ever wonder how Jogo's domain, Coffin of the Iron Mountain, got its name? As it turns out, it's not inspired by anything in the real world, but instead its origins can be traced back to ancient Indian cosmology. There, it was believed that 9 mountains and 8 seas encompass the world, with one massive mountain in the center. This central mountain is surrounded by 8 rings of mountains, and the last ring is said to be made of iron. This most likely served as the inspiration for the concept of the Coffin of the Iron Mountain in the series. It's completely insane that 𝐥𝐫𝐸 thought of this when naming Jogo's technique, but this is still nothing compared to some of the stuff we're going to talk about in the 4th stage. Sukuna, the Disgraced One. When we were first introduced to Sukuna, he was always referred to as the King of Curses. However, later on in the story, Angel started referring to him as the Disgraced One. Why is that? Well, looking at Sukuna's appearance, especially his real body, the guy has 2 faces and 4 arms, which is obviously a bit weird. The only other sorcerer who looks nothing like a regular human is Master Tengen. If you compare their designs, you'll notice that they both have 4 eyes aligned in a similar way, and even Kenjaku commented once on how similar Tengen was looking to Sukuna. Is this really a coincidence? The theory here states that the reason Tengen and Sukuna have similar appearances is because they both evolved. When Sukuna evolved, he pretty much lost his humanity and the ability to show any emotions. This could be the reason why Angel refers to him as the Disgraced One, as he chose power over humanity. Another thing supporting this theory is the fact that Sukuna always refers to humans and curses as if they're below him, hinting that he may be evolved and doesn't consider himself to be either human or curse. Yuji can swap souls. The whole theory about Yuji switching bodies stems from this one page in chapter 222. Here we can see Yuji talking to Kusakabe and referring to him as Yuji. Pretty weird, right? So if this is some kind of soul swap technique, how did Yuji even learn it? First of all, in chapter 220, Choso gives Yuji a book left by Yuki, which contains research on the body and the soul. Also, we noted in one of the previous theories that Yuji should be able to use Sukuna's curse techniques at some point. Why does that matter? Well, we know that Sukuna somehow learned how to split his soul into cursed objects and was also able to resist Mihiro's soul manipulation. So after being Sukuna's vessel for quite some time and learning about souls, it's possible that Yuji now has some of those soul-related abilities and can use them to swap bodies with other people. This ability could be a major turning point for the plot of Jujutsu Kaisen, as it may finally allow Yuji to become strong enough to face Sukuna. Nobara is alive. Ever since chapter 125, Nobara's status in the manga has been unknown. Is she dead, or is she alive? Well, although many fans already accepted that she's most likely dead and won't be appearing in the story anymore, there are some things hinting that she might actually be alive. So, as you remember, Nobara was hit by idol transfiguration, which was, time and again, described as a technique that can't even be cursed by reverse curse technique, as it literally changes your soul. Now, if we leave it at that, we can say that yes, Nobara is 100% dead. However, after she presumably dies, this guy appears and says that there's still a slight chance she can be saved. Now, the important thing to note here is that we've never seen this guy before this, and he also never appeared after this. It's like he was just created for this one specific scene. I mean, if 𝐿𝐵𝐵 wanted to kill Nobara, he could have just left her lying there and her death would be confirmed. But for some reason, he went through the trouble of creating a random character with a random curse technique that just so happens that it maybe can save Nobara's life. For obvious reasons, a lot of fans aren't buying that and expect that Nobara will soon return to the story and help Yuji in his final fight against Sukuna. Prison Realm. The Prison Realm is a special grade cursed object that has the power to seal anyone inside it, no matter how strong they are. We've seen it in action during Shibuya arc when Kenjaku managed to seal Gojo, who's known to be the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer in the current era. Gojo eventually managed to come out of the Prison Realm with the help of Hana, but now that it's empty again, there's a huge chance that it'll play a massive role later on in the series. There were tons of theories about who could get sealed next, but the most plausible one is that it'll be the King of Curses himself, Ryomen Sukuna. I mean, considering Sukuna's strength, it's really hard to imagine any of the sorcerers actually posing a significant threat to him, so sealing him may end up being the only viable option. The only problem is that they'll have to keep him within the range for 1 full minute, which won't be easy, but they may end up tricking him in some way, similar to how Kenjaku tricked Gojo. Uraume's incarnation. So, what if Uraume wasn't incarnated as some of the other sorcerers and had instead been alive for over 1,000 years? Sounds impossible, right? Well, let's go over some things supporting this theory. Uraume was first seen in February, while the incarnated players awaken in late October. Additionally, all other incarnated players are part of the culling game, while Uraume isn't. It's also evident that Kenjaku isn't a huge fan of the curse user, and Uraume wasn't even needed necessarily for Sukuna's resurrection. It just doesn't make any sense why Kenjaku would even incarnate her. So if Uraume isn't incarnated, how did she survive for over 1,000 years? The best theory so far is that she survived using her ice formation curse technique. You see, 𝐿𝐵𝐵 always tries to incorporate science into the techniques he creates, and since Uraume has an ice technique, it's possible that she can slow down her aging cryogenically. This has already been proven theoretically possible by science, so it would make sense that Uraume has frozen herself in order to survive, patiently awaiting Sukuna's rebirth. Only 3 more stages are left to cover, and let's kick off the next stage with this insane theory about Kenjaku's new body. We already discussed how Nobara is most likely dead. However, since Mihito killed her by manipulating her soul, physically, her body should be in pretty good shape. This is why some fans believe that Kenjaku will eventually swap bodies with her to further torment Yuji and use her straw doll technique. Undeniably, poor Yuji has faced the worst kind of emotional damage in the anime, and it doesn't seem like it'll be ending anytime soon. Although this theory is really unlikely to actually happen, you have to agree that it would be really cool to see evil Nobara in action. Tengen's secret. Tengen is one of the oldest sorcerers in the Jujutsu Kaisen world and is known for her immortality. Since the beginning of the show, Tengen has always been shrouded in mystery, and very little was revealed about her. Since the culling game began, many fans speculated that Tengen is definitely hiding something, and there's a strong reason for that. First of all, it seems like Tengen is well acquainted with Kenjaku and knows Sukuna as well. One time Kenjaku even commented on how Tengen seemingly wants to look like Sukuna. There's a popular theory that Tengen and Kenjaku have known each other for quite a long time, and that they came up with the concept for the culling game years ago. If I had to guess, the two probably worked together around 1,000 years ago during the Heian era and started the culling game for some reason. This would also tie in well with the previous theory about 𝗬𝗲 and the fact that there was most likely another culling game in the past. So does this mean that Tengen is an accomplice of Kenjaku? Probably not. Tengen might have had a completely different plan for the Culling game and later on got betrayed by Kenjaku, which resulted in them drifting apart. Kashimo's Curse Technique. Although Kashimo's Curse Technique was revealed in recent chapters, it was a big mystery in the fandom for quite some time, and there were some great theories about it. Since Kashimo didn't want to use the technique against anyone else except Sukuna, a lot of fans believed that it was some kind of all-or-nothing attack that could cause widespread destruction. This was a pretty good guess, as we now know that his technique is called Mythical Beast Amber, and it allows him to far surpass his limits, but it can only be used once before his body crumbles. Another great theory focuses more on the mythology part of Kashimo, as his character was inspired by Takemikazuchi, who is known to be the god of thunder and the god of swords. This led many to believe that his curse technique could be summoning a single divine sword or even multiple swords. Some fans joked about it and said that he's going to use the unlimited blade works from the Fate series. Gojo will come back. I know a lot of you are probably tired of hearing this Gojo was alive stuff, but let's go over some hints and theories as to why it may be true. First of all, it's important to note that throughout the show, Gojo has always been associated with Buddha. Take this scene for example. Here, Gojo pointed one of his fingers up and one of his fingers down. This is the same exact thing Buddha did when he was born. Another thing to note is that Buddha also said the exact same words Gojo says in this scene. Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. Okay, but what does that have to do with Gojo being alive? Well, another thing about Buddha is that he started his journey to enlightenment at the age of 29. And how old do you think Gojo is? He's exactly 1 day short of being 29. This is why a lot of fans believe that these parallels to Buddha suggest that Gojo will go through some kind of spiritual enlightenment and come back to the story even stronger. Another thing supporting this theory is found in Gojo's last flashback. Here, Nanami is saying that everyone has a choice to go either south or north. If we look at everyone's sitting positions, we can see that Nanami and Haibara are facing one direction while Gojo and Geto are facing the other one. Since Hanami and Haibara are confirmed to be dead, this could mean that Gojo will choose a different direction and survive. This could also make sense considering that Geto is also facing the same direction as Gojo, and we know that he's still somewhat alive in Kenjaku's current body, the last finger. As you know, even at this point in the story, Sukuna ate only 19 of his fingers as he has no idea where the last one is. There are many theories about it. Some say that Gojo has it and others say that it's just lost somewhere in the Jujutsu Kaisen world. However, the best theory so far has to be that Yuji is actually Sukuna's last finger. Okay, let me explain. We know that Kenjaku was in possession of most of Sukuna's fingers, if not all of them at some point in time. We also know that he experimented on Yuji while he was pregnant. So what if Kenjaku somehow used the finger during his experiments in order to make Yuji the perfect vessel for Sukuna? When you think about it, we never really got the specific answer as to why Yuji is able to suppress Sukuna so well, and this theory would explain it perfectly. Another interesting thing is that while talking to Choso, Kenjaku referred to Yuji as it, as if he was an object. It's a term he used specifically for Yuji and none of his other creations like Choso or his brothers. And lastly, Sukuna's original form and Yuji both have pink hair. This is a very unique hair color and could hint towards the connection between the two. Before we cover the last, 7th stage of the iceberg and some of the most unhinged theories you ever heard, let's first cover the 6th stage, which is pretty crazy as well. Yuta's real curse technique. Yuta Okutsu is a second-year student at Jujutsu High and is the main protagonist in the movie Zero. There, Yuta displayed his incredible abilities and even Gojo said that Yuta might surpass him someday. At the moment, it's believed that Yuta's curse technique is copying and utilizing the techniques and abilities of others. But what if this isn't the case? You see, there's a theory that Yuta's real curse technique is the ability to select a specific target with whom he shares a special bond. He then binds the target to an object that holds sentimental value for them. For example, in Rika's case, it was a ring. Afterward, the strength of the cursed spirit correlates directly with how authentic the bond was and the intensity of the love shared. According to this theory, Yuta can also use the curse technique of the spirit he binds with, and in Rika's case, that ability is copy. This means that if Yuta ever binds with someone else, he may get to use a completely different curse technique associated with the other spirit. Bizarre reverse curse techniques. Only a handful of Jujutsu sorcerers can use reverse curse techniques. It's mainly the ability used to heal human bodies, but if you're skilled enough, you can also combine the reverse curse technique with your regular curse technique in order to reverse its effects. For example, when Gojo does this, his blue technique becomes red, which is a color opposite to blue. When Kenjaku uses it, he can reverse the effect of his anti-gravity system and intensify the force of gravity around him. However, one big problem with this is, how would this apply to some of the other sorcerers? Take Mei, for example. Her curse technique is called bird manipulation and it allows her to control crows. So what would the reversal of this technique look like? Do crows get to control her? What about Tengen's immortality technique? Does he just die if he tries to use it reversed? Anyway, it's quite obvious that this system doesn't work with the majority of the curse techniques in the series, so I guess some characters will just never unlock this ability. The 𝐿𝐵𝐷𝐴 theory. At the end of chapter 170, we can see Megumi's domain expansion, 𝐂𝐮𝐼RA's Shadow Garden, looking like two bones of the vertebrae. Since Megumi's domain is still incomplete, could it be that this base will eventually grow into something bigger? Well, a lot of fans believe that the bones from Megumi's domain will create a huge skeleton creature called 𝐵𝐷𝐴, and here's why. The Zenin family is a descendant of one of the three great vengeful spirits of Japan, Taira no Masakado, whose daughter was able to summon spirits. The daughter could also summon 𝐵𝐷𝐴 from the shadows and had the ability to summon an army of frogs and snakes. Sounds pretty familiar, right? Megumi has the exact same ability. What's more, in episode 9 of the show, Mahito can be seen reading a book while talking to Junpei. If we zoom into this exact page, you can see that 𝐵𝐷𝐴 is illustrated in his book. This specific scene only appears in the anime, and it was personally supervised by 𝐏𝐫𝐸 too. I mean, out of thousands of monsters from Japanese mythology 𝐏𝐫𝐸 could have included on these pages, he intentionally decided to include 𝐵𝐷𝐴. If this isn't foreshadowing, I don't know what is. And finally, the 7th stage of the iceberg. I hope you're ready, because some of the upcoming theories are so ridiculous and bizarre that they'll literally blow your mind. Rika is not Rika. Okay, so this is a pretty unhinged one. So you may have noticed that the current Rika in the manga and Rika from Jujutsu Kaisen movie 0 look a bit different. Now, instead of just accepting that this is a design change, some fans came up with some crazy theories explaining Rika's different design. So you all remember how at the end of the movie, Yuta lifted Rika's curse, finally setting her free? Some people believe that Rika died at that moment and Yuta couldn't use her powers anymore. Later on, when Yuta went to Africa to train with Miguel during season 1, he accidentally cursed another girl and ended up with a completely new cursed spirit. This would explain why Rika's design is different now, as it's not Rika, it's a completely different girl. Sukuna's domain is a nuclear bomb. One of the JJK fans on Reddit noticed something interesting when comparing nuclear bombs to Sukuna's domain expansion. Apparently, some of the smaller nuclear bombs, like those used in World War II, have an instant vaporization radius of around a few hundred meters. This is really similar to the range of Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine, which is 200 meters. The shockwave of a nuclear blast immediately damages everything it comes into contact with, same as Sukuna's technique Dismantle, which immediately cuts everything inside the domain. And lastly, the radiation wave of a nuclear blast destroys all living things at a molecular level, tearing them apart piece by piece, which is really similar to how Cleave cuts all living things inside the domain, tearing them apart. Looking at these facts, it's most likely that 𝐏𝐫𝐸's partly used the nuclear bomb as inspiration when coming up with Sukuna's abilities, the useless Miwa. There's an ongoing gag in the show about Miwa, one of the second-year students, being completely useless. She even constantly says it herself. This is why there's a theory that she'll actually play a big part at some point in the story and surprise everyone. There's absolutely nothing supporting this, but everything's possible, I guess. Sukuna's past life. Due to his Cleave and Dismantle abilities, some fans speculated that Sukuna was a chef in his past life. Most of his attacks are similar to cutting with a knife, and the fact that he can use fire techniques further adds to this theory, as it would probably help him with cooking. Also, we know 𝐬𝐵𝐴 was Sukuna's subordinate during the Heian era, so maybe she was his cooking assistant. I mean, there was no refrigeration back then, so it's possible that 𝐬𝐵𝐴 used her ice curse technique to keep ingredients frozen. But if you're interested in what happened to Sukuna after he stopped being a chef, you can click here next, where we explained all of his forms in Jujutsu Kaisen.